judgment that will transform America's political, legal and social landscape. The United States Supreme Court struck down the historic Roe versus Wade judgment that had institutionalized abortion-related protections in the country. The verdict has also opened the door for states to impose an outright ban on abortion on severely curtailing it. And what is important to know that a slew of US states immediately moved to ban abortion across Republican-run swathes of the America.
Protests erupting across cities in the United States against a Supreme Court ruling on abortion.
This decision! Illegitimate! This decision! Illegitimate! This decision! Illegitimate! The Supreme Court! Illegitimate! This court! Illegitimate! This court! Illegitimate! Abortion ban! Illegitimate! Abortion ban!
The ending of nearly 50 years of abortion rights is being questioned on the streets.
I was really sad. I cry a lot because it's not good decision. This is the slavery for the women of all country.
What are they going to come for next? Gay marriage? Will I be able to marry a woman in 4 years? The next election cycle is going to be brutal. Like, it's terrifying.
Striking down of the constitutional right to abortion has opened the door for states to impose an outright ban on abortion or severely curtail it. With the US midterm elections in November, debate on abortion is set to drive the agenda, a point endorsed by President Joe Biden.
Doesn't mean the fight's over. Let me be very clear and unambiguous. The only way we can secure a woman's right to choose the balance that existed is for Congress to restore the protections of Roe v. Wade as federal law. No executive action from the president can do that. And if Congress, as it appears, lacks the votes to do that now, voters need to make their voices heard.
Even Vice President Kamala Harris echoing concerns of the Democrats over the assault on privacy.
This is the first time in the history of our nation that a constitutional right has been taken from the people of America. And what is that right? Some might ask. It's the right to privacy.
But in the Republican camp, there's a sense of victory. In fact, they are taking ownership that the 1973 Roe v. Wade judgment, which held abortion as a constitutional right, has been removed from the statute book.
Today's historic Supreme Court decision is a victory for the sanctity of life. It will save countless innocent children.
This is certainly a day that pro-lifers have been waiting for 49 years.
Yet the immediate reaction on the ground is of disbelief.
Rise up! For abortion rights! For abortion rights! Rise up!
Even world leaders have expressed surprise and dismay over the US Supreme Court ruling. From Boris Johnson, Justin Trudeau, Pedro Sanchez, Emmanuel Macron have sounded a note of caution over encroachment of women's fundamental right. Abolishing abortion rights may have come as a big shock, but it just might be the catalyst for profound change in American politics in the years ahead. Bureau Report, Times Now.
It's a judgment that can have a domino effect not just in the United States but around the world as well. It's a judgment that has affected more than half the population of the United States because the Supreme Court of the United States has decided to strike down a 50-year-old landmark decision. You cannot now have an abortion. It is deemed illegal, though the states have their own rights to whether or not they take away this shield as far as legality is concerned. But as of now, the top court of the United States has agreed that abortion is not a constitutional right. That decision has divided the people and the activists in the United States. The world is also reacting. A 50-year landmark decision has been struck down by the United States top court today, and many believe that this Supreme Court ruling is going to have not just a spiraling effect in the United States but around the world as well, because it could be cited as precedent in several other countries, whether it has a domino effect or not. To discuss exactly that, today we have two of our panelists with us on this broadcast. Chase Geiser, host of One American Podcast, is with us. Lakeisha Harris, co-director of Lift Louisiana, which is an advocacy group for women and children, also joins us. And Ms. Harris, I'd like to begin with you. We've seen the kind of reactions that have come to the fore, not just across the United States, but around the world as well. It's one step or too many steps backwards for women's rights, is what many are saying.
Yes, it definitely is. It definitely is setting precedent, and in the way that we see the federal government running, and the fact that it has pushed us back 50 years in legislation, and will have such insurmountable effects for poor people navigating healthcare systems to seek abortion. So, yeah, we are all devastated by the ruling, and we are not going to be silent about it.
Right, Mr. Geiser, even Joe Biden came out and said that it was a sad day for our democracy, for our country. You've struck down a constitutional right of the women of this country. How do you see that? This is something, as a Republican agenda, was, something that even Trump has spoken of. He even came out today and claimed credit for what exactly transpired in the Supreme Court.
Yeah, well, it's interesting that you quoted Joe Biden saying that this was a sad day for our democracy, because the first thing that comes to mind is I've never heard Joe Biden actually utter a complete sentence, at least not in the last 10 years. And the second thing that I consider when I hear that is that the United States is not a democracy, it's a constitutional republic, and the word democracy is not used once in our Constitution. And the third thing I think about that is that this is not about a women's rights or a right to make a decision with your own body. This is about whether or not an unborn child has the same human rights as a fully grown human being. And so the debate is whether or not we need to protect the rights of the humans that are unborn. And so I think that yesterday was a great step in that direction.
Right, so it is about human rights. We're talking about women's rights as well. We're also talking about the rights of the unborn child, of the unborn baby, because that also is something that we need to consider. That's, of course, the other side. But, Ms. Harris, there are times when it's not about just having a choice of the decision or having a choice over your body. There are several other reasons why anybody would want to get an abortion. Those are the kind of reasons why such a law or such a landmark decision was passed 5 decades ago. By striking that down, are we now telling the women, telling the teenagers in the United States that, well, you made your choice, or well, you made your mistake, and now you have to live with it?
Well, to be honest with you, it is always about the right of the person, and it is always about bodily autonomy, whether we like that or not. People giving birth aren't just vessels. They're human beings, and it is always about their choice, first and foremost. But we're existing in a society, especially in Louisiana, where it's hard to raise your child economically. Black women giving birth in the state of Louisiana face death 4 times greater than that of white people who are more privileged in this state. There are economic reasons why people choose to have an abortion, and all of those things are personal, right? So you cannot deny the human experience and bodily autonomy, and you cannot say that people give up their bodily autonomy once they become pregnant, which essentially is what right-wing conservatives have been, why right-wing conservatives have been chipping away at Roe for the longest time.
So essentially you're saying it's not as simple as just a pro-life versus pro-choice sort of a decision. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Absolutely. There's intersecting oppressions that people are experiencing at every day of their existence, and we have to be cognizant of that.
Do you agree with that, Mr. Geiser? Because right now, it's the fact that this has been overturned does not necessarily make abortion illegal. It's just giving the right to the state to make that kind of decision. If they do want to, make it illegal, that shield that existed because of the Roe versus Wade ruling, that shield has gone. But it can't be that simple. There can't be simple binaries.
Sure, you're right in the sense that the states are going to be able to make this decision now, and so there's going to be a little bit of autonomy at the state level. But I disagree with Ms. Harris, though I respect her position. I disagree with the notion that one's bodily autonomy gives one the right to make the decision about whether another has the right to live or not. However, I am very sympathetic to the problems that she raised, which are true, that minority communities suffer greater infant mortality, they suffer greater health concerns for mothers giving birth, and that's certainly an issue that we have to solve. I'm just suggesting that the solution to that is not to eradicate the life of unborn children.
So then how do we come around that? Do you think, Mr. Geiser? Yeah. Ms. Harris, I'll just get you in, but just a follow-up question, Mr. Geiser. I just want to ask you, so how do we find that solution? Perhaps should we have thought of that solution before we got rid of this ruling or the law altogether?
Well, I think that the number one purpose of government is to protect individual rights. And so I don't think there's any necessity for conversation before those rights are protected. That being said, I think that there should be an expedient response to the economic ails of all communities in the United States, regardless of their immutable qualities, race, gender, sexual orientation. And so I think the solution is ensuring that the healthcare resources that are provided to less privileged communities are enhanced.
Right. So the solution, Ms. Harris, is that there needs to be better planning or better reallocation of resources as far as healthcare is concerned. And well, this decision has now been taken, so now it is up to this government or perhaps the next government or many more who would come out and ensure that there is no fallout of this particular decision.
But there will be fallout. And that's just the thing. So before you enforce laws that make people stare down a healthcare system that is in fact racist, that does not consider them human and does not consider their existence, you should think of that beforehand, not after the fact, not when so many people have so much at stake. And to make people stare down economic challenges, healthcare systems that are inherently racist, and also an enhanced criminal justice system because of the way the laws are being rolled out. So in Louisiana, we have the highest incarceration rate in the world. So you're forcing people to stare down so many intersecting oppressions, and it's not right, and we will continue to fight.
And Mr. Geiser, it's not just about the United States. Yes, of course, it is about the people there. It's about the women folk there. But the kind of decisions that are made both in terms of judiciary and the legislature in the United States has an effect around the world as well. We've had the UN come out and say that this is a deadly blow. We've had several other world leaders who've called this decision horrific and appalling because it is the kind of effect that would have a domino effect, so to say, around the world as well. And then what happens?
I'm not particularly concerned with the rest of the world. I'm only concerned with what happens in the United States. I believe that every nation is sovereign and has the right to make decisions for its own future and the right to manifest its own destiny. But I understand Ms. Harris's perspective on this issue, and I appreciate her point about acknowledging the humanity of minority communities and fighting systemic racism. But I would suggest that the Supreme Court ruling is the first to acknowledge the humanity of unborn minority children.
Right,
and still deferring the humanity of living humans, living Black people.
That's not true.
That is true.
That's where we disagree. I fundamentally disagree with the notion that legislation that protects the life of unborn children simultaneously infringes upon the rights of adult human beings, especially when the law applies equally to all communities.
We just had the Supreme Court uphold gun laws that just not even a week ago, brown children were executed in their school system, yet take away bodily autonomy for Black and brown people. So I just don't see where you can really disagree with the fact that the Supreme Court is really not interested in the survival of Black and brown people in this country. But I digress.
Ms. Harris, I'd like to bring this to your attention that, we've been talking about solutions and how you cannot really find the solution to a problem after the fact. You should have thought of this before the Supreme Court actually went down and gave this ruling. Now, we've seen several private players actually come in. There's been Meta, there's JP Morgan Chase, Warner Brothers, Disney have all come out and assured assistance to their female employees. They've said, we'll bear all costs. If you want to, travel out of state to do this, we'll ensure we'll bear all of the costs and give you the medical and the emotional assistance that we could give you perhaps in this time of need. Is that one way? And yes, maybe in the short term it is, but is that a sustainable solution? Ms. Harris?
Yeah, it's just, it's infuriating. It's not a sustainable solution. What would have been a sustainable solution was the Supreme Court to uphold the precedent that they had already set and maintain abortion access. That's what we wanted, that's what we needed, and that's what we deserved as a community and as a country.
So, Mr. Geiser, you don't believe that the country has been set back 5 decades? This is a step in the right direction, is what you believe?
I believe that any legislation that protects the right to life of any human being is a step in the right direction. And frankly, I believe that the only purpose of government is to protect the rights of individuals, regardless of any of their immutable qualities. And so anything that they do, anything that the government does outside that is an overstep, and anything that the government does that falls short of that is just that, falling short of that.
How would you respond to the kind of reaction that has come to the fore, not just from Joe Biden, that you obviously have spoken of, but from the entire administration, from Kamala Harris as well?
Well, I don't think that the current administration believes in human rights at all. I mean, frankly, we've just spent tens of billions of dollars funding a self-proclaimed Nazi battalion in Ukraine. And frankly, the evidence is insurmountable that the Biden family personally makes a tremendous amount of money off of money laundering schemes in Ukraine through energy companies and other NGOs, non-government organizations like Metabiota and the other biolabs that were on the border of Russia.
Right, and Ms. Harris, last comments coming in from you. What is it that you now expect from the legislative arm now that the judiciary has let you down?
Well, what we expect is for our federal government to step in and intercede and solidify abortion right legislatively. If we will push for that. And we are hoping that the international community will speak up on behalf of women and pregnant people in this country.
Right, Chase Geiser and Lakeisha Harris, thank you so much for joining us here on Times Now and sharing your views. That divide is deep as far as the abortion ruling is concerned. Reactions coming in not just from the United States but around the world as well. Thank you, both panelists, for joining us.